So, Ed, you took over the estate from me in 2017 after your dear mother died. You lived here for a period, you knew it well, but what surprised you most when you took it over?
I think what surprised me most was the sheer level of expenditure that is required. The sheer level of income that is required just to end the month at zero. I think that was a massive shock. I'd spent my career in the city working for other people, raising money, and sort of the figures you're dealing with down there are in the millions and the tens of millions, and it's kind of, it's not your money, so it's sort of as if it's synthetic. It doesn't, it's not the same as when you're running your own business and you're looking at that monthly expenditure and that monthly income, and it's matching the two, and it's really boring, but managing cash flow was the hardest thing I've ever done. I'm not a mathematician. I hate spreadsheets. And I remember that first 6 months just spending poring over figures, trying to work out how to balance books. I think that surprised me the most. But I think alongside that, the sheer enjoyment of doing it surprised me. I love it. I absolutely love it. And the pressures of it and the trials and tribulations of it, it's fun. But that's kind of counterbalanced by the fact that you've got to make some cash to pay your wages, to do the upkeep. I think that was the biggest shock.
So why did you change your lifestyle and not follow what I did, which was to be in the city, earn a lot of money, put it back in here? What made you decide to leave the city and come here?
That's a long question. Well, the short answer is because I absolutely adore this place. And I think because I grew up here with almost like a sort of, magical upbringing with mum here, and this being a family house, and also, in all honesty, I wasn't that good at the city thing. It was fine, and I enjoyed it, but I don't think...
Yes, I wasn't much use of it either.
Well, you were quite good at it, but you were certainly better at it than I was, and I didn't love it. That was the thing. I didn't love the City of London. It had changed a lot since the 90s and the 80s when you were there, but that's a different conversation. But I think the pull of coming back here, I'd been to Cirencester, I'd studied agriculture. Well, I'd done some things at Cirencester to do with work, but I had learnt, the job in effect when I was at university, and all I've ever wanted to do was come home.
Yeah,
in effect.
Yeah. So when you took over, how did you go about balancing what I suppose you could call tradition, but by that I mean the concept that I alluded to earlier, where you own it, own the place, but actually you hold it in trust for the people, with the importance of commercialisation to be able to provide longevity for it.
It's a tricky balance, but I think I spurred myself on in the fact that without commercialisation, I was going to fail at my responsibility. And I think my fear of failure has always been quite high, ever since I left school, that is. And to be the one that drops the torch, I think is a really, really big firework in the right area. In that you're only the fifth generation. I'm only the fifth generation to live here, but by God, you don't want to be the fifth generation that dropped the ball. Yeah. And I think that kind of drives you, and it means that your estate life is different. Zoe and I don't live here. We can't afford to live here because the whole house needs to be commercial and it needs to function. So that's kind of one of those decisions that we took, and we just went, well, look, if we're going to do this, it's got to work 100%. And in order to fill our obligations and maintain tradition, we needed to commercialise to the max, in effect, and ensure that people stay in the properties and the garden employs people and the house employs people. And otherwise you just get on a downward spiral.
So the difference, in a sense, is that whereas your mum and I lived in this house, and your mum certainly did, you have actually moved out to a house down the road.
Yep.
And this is now a commercial enterprise.
It is absolutely a commercial enterprise.
But yet, still used for big parties and enjoyment.
It's still used by family.
Yes.
And I think the key to this house, and everybody says the same thing when they've been here, is they feel like it's a family home. It doesn't feel like a big drafty Scottish castle. You know, and we're sitting in the library and we are just surrounded by photos of me as a toddler on your chest, and my wedding, and us wearing silly suits down in Edinburgh. You know, everywhere you look, there is family. So I don't think I was really worried when we moved out it was going to lose its soul. It hasn't lost a bit of soul, I don't think, because you and Mum put the soul back in the house.
Yeah. So what part of the estate are you most excited now to develop?
Ooh.
Or change?
Or change. I think I'm nervous about the farm, because farming in the UK is changing and not for the better. I think...
Not for the better on whose behalf? The farmer's behalf, or, or the person buying the food?
Both. I think it's getting to the stage. I mean, I don't want to get into a huge farming debate, but getting to the stage where inputs are too high, prices are too low. There's very little assistance out there now that they're winding up subsidies, etc. Farmers are going to start to go out of business. You've got the land, you've got the new inheritance tax rules. There are so many things that are putting into the farming side. Now, why does the consumer suffer? Well, the consumer suffers because they're going to get food from abroad, because we're going to cease to produce, or food prices in the UK are going to go up. So I think, you know, we're looking at lots of things to do with the farm. Are we even growing the right crop? Should we be doing something different? Should we be doing all these enviro schemes? That's quite exciting, but also a bit like your dairy thing. We know barley. We put it in the ground, we fertilise it, and it grows, and we sell it, and it works. And it's kind of like your banker. And if you're going to suddenly uproot it and do something completely different, you're removing that security blanket of growing barley. So that's really exciting. The airfield's super exciting. There's so much potential on that place. And this, I don't know,
How big is the airfield?
510 acres in total. This house is really exciting. You know, we've been through huge rebranding projects and marketing and all this kind of stuff, and people are really starting to come here. So I think all aspects, the only aspect that worries me at all times is the properties on the estate, because they're underinvested. Yeah, that's all. So is there a fundamental problem? You mentioned the fundamental problem within farming, which I think is absolutely correct. And farming is going to become a game of scale. No question about that. And the idea that we have small family farms, sadly, the government has succeeded in killing stone dead. Yeah. And in a sense, in that way, in the same way as the whole fox hunting and all this rubbish that's going on is actually ruining rural life. Yeah. But if 82% of the votes are sitting in the central belt, who cares? But do you think that there is a problem, actually, if you take the farming issue, in the whole food chain, where the whiskey distilleries now are really under pressure? Yeah. They're reducing the amount of barley that they buy. Mm-hmm. Therefore, growing barley on grade 3 land at 2.5-3 tons an acre simply cannot make money. No. What's the outcome of that? I think the outcome, sadly, is people will stop growing barley, because you can't just make a loss for the sake of making whiskey. The maltings will get their barley from elsewhere. Yeah. That's, and your bottle of malt whiskey will have considerably less Scottish product in it than it does now.
Yeah. Sorry, this is rather self-serving.
Oh, go on then.
but in what way has my guidance shaped your approach to running these things?
Well, that's a good one. I think your guidance has taught me to try and not get bogged down in not the minutiae, but especially when it comes to figures, because you do figures and I don't. And I remember early on coming to you with this cash flow spreadsheet and just going, I don't, look at this figure doesn't go there. And you said, no, stop. You said, don't look at all that. Look at that bottom line. Where is your problem? You can analyse from the bottom up. Don't try and make the figures put the bottom line in. Do your bottom line, see what's looking at it, see what's going on, and see where your pinch points are. And don't be afraid that at some point in the year things might be a bit squeezy. that's running a business. That's running a very lumpy cash flow, which farming is, because it all happens at either end of the year and you have to balance the books in the middle. But also I think your guidance on the great thing that you did was when you handed it over, you didn't manage me. You just said, I've done my bit. It's yours. I'm at the end of the corridor if you need me.
This may be a slightly unfair question, but if you look across Scotland and England too, is there a problem over the whole way that intergenerational transfers happen, in the way that the older generation give but don't really give it away?
Yeah, well, I think so, and I think that's been time immemorial, hasn't it? I would imagine when the first Inneses built this and they handed it over to their sons, they probably didn't do it particularly well.
No, it was different in those days, because you've got to remember that when your grandfather was here, there was a factor.
Yeah, no, true.
And the factor managed the estate.
Yeah, and I think it depends, because I think it's business. It's not. I think we can just not talk about estates. It's businesses. I think when you get to that CEO position, that top drawer, when you're the boss, it's really hard to relinquish, because you've run that thing for 20 years. So when you've got to give it over to the next generation, it must be. I mean, I've not done it. You've done it, but it must be so difficult to sit in your hands and go, and not run into my office and go, what the bloody hell are you doing? This is completely insane. This is not how I did it. That must be the hardest thing ever.
But that to some extent is why I live in London and come up here irregularly. And during some parts of the year, obviously Christmas and New Year.
Yeah.
But because I don't want to be tempted to do that. I mean, there is nothing worse than the old man coming in and saying, that gate hasn't been painted for years.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think your father did it. Or did he do it?
No, he did to an extent. Yeah. I mean, I think the most famous occasion was when I was in the United States earning the money to try and commercialise this house. And he and your mum was doing up the house and everything else. In particular, putting in bathrooms so you didn't had a 200-yard dash in the middle of the night. He wrote me this wonderful letter which said, do you realise how many bathrooms she's put in this week? No, he did do that, but he did it sparingly, and towards the end, obviously he was not well.
Yes.
And so he tended to sort of depart and not get involved. In the early stages, yes, he did.
Yeah.
But not forcibly.
No.
And I think he didn't really understand what I was trying to do.
No.
It was outside his ken. It was
different.
so different. Yeah.
Okay.
So, one final question.
Yeah, go on then.
Look forward 30 years.
Right.
To when you're my age.
Yep.
If this estate and this whole enterprise is really successful, what will it look like?
I think it will look quite similar to it does now, really, because it's always been a success. It's always been enough of a success for the generation that's lived in it, if you think about it. So, Granny and Grandpa lived here. Okay, it was less of a success in that they just lived the high life. You and Mum lived here. It was a success enough to wash its face. You had another job. You had another income. So, you weren't taking money out, in effect. I come back, I don't have another job, so this has to support me and my family. So therefore the commercialisation has to take up a notch. So I think it's getting there. It's not quite there yet. I think what would be different, I think in 30 years, the farming landscape will be completely different.
What do you think it'll look like?
If the Scottish Government go anyway, everything's going to be covered in broom and bracken and green and, with lynx and wolves roaming free across our land. But I think realistically, the cash crops up here, I think you'll see a lot more fruit. I think you'll see a lot more root veg grown up here. I think you'll see less barley. I think you will see much bigger field margins, wider hedges, more trees.
That'd be a good thing, wouldn't it?
Absolutely brilliant. Oh, don't get me wrong. I think it's great. But everyone's got to think on the flip side of that. When your hedges get wider, you lose some of your field, so therefore you lose your barley. Yeah. So the same amount of the increase in population is going to be fed with a smaller amount of land. So but that's not my problem to figure out. That's the government's problem to figure out.
And of course, at the same time, they're trying to extensify, not intensify farming.
Absolutely.
Trying to do the opposite. So everything is going in contradictory.
Correct, quite right. And I think with this house, I think what will be different in here, I think we just want to carry on building on what we've got. I think the base given to us by you and Mum, we're doing at the moment, it's been 1996, the rooms were finished. So we reckon it's probably about time some of them were given a lick of paint. So we're sort of redoing a bedroom each year. We're working on the fact that, trends change slightly. More people want showers than baths, for example, when we did it in the 90s, everyone wanted the bath. So, we need walk-in showers in the rooms. So we're changing the bathrooms, we're changing the bedrooms. The wider estate, I would like to see all the rental properties in absolutely mint condition.
Can I just come back to that for a moment, because I think it's important. There are two things you can do with a house on the estate.
Yep.
You can have it for Airbnb and holiday lets, or you can have it as a permanent let, long. And there is no question there is a huge shortage of affordable housing for families in the rural areas.
Yeah.
And right now, from where I sit, and I know I'm not meant to be giving you advice, but if where I sit, doing an ordinary private rent for a family makes absolutely no sense at all.
Completely sense.
Because the Scottish Government have so managed to and particularly Patrick Harvey, when he was the Greens were in charge, have completely wrecked that market to such an extent that actually the only real way to go is Airbnb.
Yeah, I think so, and I think there's a juggle factor. We've got two now, two Airbnbs. I think with our current level of employees, that's about the max. In terms of Airbnbs, I don't think we can carry on doing them. There's obviously the short-term let licensing law, which has now come in, so we might apply for another 4, we might get denied all 4.
Yeah.
So, that's the idea of the short-term let licensing.
Would that make you then sell the house?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think you're seeing a lot of that going on at the moment.
Absolutely.
When you get to a stage where the rents are suppressed up here, because of the area we're in. But what people forget is that when you have to put a new boiler in a house here, it's probably more expensive here than it is in Oxfordshire.
Yeah.
Just materials, getting materials up here. So, yet the rent in Oxfordshire is 4 times the rent here. Yeah. So, making money on rental properties up here is nigh on impossible. So, I think you'll
making them even break even.
Making them even break even. Now, it's still an asset. If you're making a break even, it's still an asset. Yeah. But what is the point of holding on to an asset, realistically, where you could take the revenue from that asset, or you could alleviate the cash and put that into something that is actually going to make money?
Okay, let me ask you a really difficult question.
Go on then.
Political one on that subject, which is, if you were the First Minister of Scotland, and you had the autonomy that Donald Trump has, i.e. you couldn't give a stuff about anybody, and you were able to redesign the laws surrounding rented properties, how would you redesign it to ensure that that tenants' rights existed and were supported, and at the same time such rents were commercially viable?
I don't think there is a perfect solution without the suppression of the cost of input in terms of products. A piece of timber is a piece of timber and it costs X. And you can't suddenly boost the rents in a rare area where the rents are low in order to counteract the cost of the materials. You see what I mean? I think it's a nigh on impossible situation. I think I would roll back definitely on the new tenancies that we have that basically make it impossible to get rid of a tenant once they're in there, even if they don't pay the rent.
And even if they trash the place.
You still can't get rid of them. Yeah. It goes to the tribunal and it's all very messy, etc., etc. So I think there is that element. I would roll back on that. There were still tenants' rights. I would probably still keep the eviction tribunal for extreme, for cases. So there's an appeals process. I think there should be an appeals process, because there was a problem with landlords just booting people out for absolutely no
Mainly
reason.
in Glasgow.
Absolutely, mainly in towns and I think that's inherently wrong.
Yeah.
And I think there should be an appeals process, but I don't think there should be the stage that we're at now, where you've got, you have to not pay 6 months rent before you get thrown out. I mean, bonkers. So I think it's an impossible situation to solve, unfortunately.
I think, from where I sit and looking at it, there is, broadly speaking, the laws, if you look at rental properties generally around Scotland in the rural areas, give or take one or two idiots, landowners have been really responsible about how they let and how they protect their tenants. And what we've ended up with is legislation to sort out the problems in Glasgow, where you really have got some ghastly people letting and really bucking their tenants about, and that applying to the rural areas where the problem doesn't exist, or if it exists, it's very, very small.
But that goes back to your point about being governed by a central belt.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
I don't.
No. I've got one for you.
Oh.
Okay. So, final question. Your most enjoyable moment of running this estate?
This is going to sound a bit odd.
Okay.
But you remember Alice Petrie, who was the nursery maid, who married Sandy Petrie, who was one of the tenant farmers.
Absolutely.
Alice tragically died early in life, and Sandy died last year.
Yeah.
And I remember going to play the pipes at his funeral. Yeah. And the one thing he wanted was the Dark Island, which was the tune that Alice and I fell in love with.
Right.
Angela, who was their daughter, said to me after the funeral, a couple of days later, why don't you come down and see the house we've got in Lambride and just see the photographs and all the rest of them. When I went down there, on the wall were the most wonderful array of photographs of the family. And at the bottom left-hand corner was the Tennant family.
Okay.
That, to me, said thousands.
It says everything, That encapsulates what life is all about.
It is what owning an estate and running an estate is about.
Yeah.
Lairds do not screw their tenants.
No.
Lairds look after their estates. Yes, there are bad lairds and there are bad tenants.
Yeah.
But in general terms, you go across Scotland and that culture is so inbred that it will not disappear. Okay. Except when you get the new industrialists coming in.
Absolutely.
And the city coming in. Yeah. And they need to be trained. Yeah. And when I was chairman of Scottish Land Estates and this started, and we started to see people coming in to get carbon, we were seeing people coming in who actually thought owning land was like owning a share. Yeah. Well, it's not.
It's not. No. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done. There you go, your social media debut done. You're now a social media sensation.
Yeah, right.
Thank you very much, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed that. We will do some more videos. We'll do some stuff with some of the guys that work here, and we're going to get out and about a bit more with the camera now the weather's getting better. So thank you very much, everyone, and here's to a wonderful 2026.